honestly, this is a much better film than the previous trilogy by far. It was very pleasant. You can tell the director actually wanted to film Spider-Man. He wanted to film him swinging in New York, wanted to film the streets of New York. You have this feel as soon as the movie starts that yes, this is about Spider-Man, this is about New York. That feels like this Spider-Man has evolved in a different MCU, in a different universe than the rest of the MCU. This movie made me care again a little. Yesterday I've gone to watch Spider-Man Brand New Day. I haven't been caught up on the MCU for a while, especially because after the whole mess around Kang Dynasty and everything, I kind of lost interest, honestly. I've been following the MCU more or less closely since more or less the beginning. I wouldn't call myself a super fan, I just enjoy it. But yeah, the most recent projects, I've just either haven't had the time to watch them or didn't care. But I've seen some news about Doomsday, and I saw that the new Spider-Man was coming out. I was at least a bit curious, which is more than I can say about the other Spider-Man films. So I went to watch it, and it was different. This format isn't really gonna be essays. I mean, I've been meaning to talk about certain things that I just feel like talking about, I guess, without necessarily writing or editing too much. Commentaries about whatever comes to mind. Although, I will include actual criticism, notably, right now for the Spider-Man film, and thoughts. Like, I'm not saying all this without thinking at all. But also, let's just get into it. As I've kind of said, I am not a fan of the Spider-Man trilogy in the MCU. I am not a fan of Tom Holland's character, and I am not a fan of directing, I'm not a fan of the story, and I was especially not a fan of the cinematography. Those movies worked because, hey, it's Spider-Man, so yeah, of course it's gonna work. Spider-Man as a basis, it's a great basis. You really have to try hard to make a bad Spider-Man film. And yet, you weren't filming Spider-Man at all. But the fact that they changed director to the guy who made Shang-Chi, which I really, really liked, gave me at least some form of hope. So my local theater released it on an outside screening. It was pretty nice. And yeah, honestly, this is a much better film than the previous trilogy by far. Now let's talk about it one by one. So yeah, I actually liked this Spider-Man. I liked the character as a whole. This Peter, I did not manage to convince me to really care so much about him. I cared a bit. I mean, a lot of bad things happened to him and all of that, so of course I cared a little bit, but really not that much. The previous movies hadn't managed to be good enough for me to really invest myself. It's not like he was inconsistent or anything. He was uninteresting. I don't know. I didn't feel interested. But this Peter feels much more like Spider-Man. The premise, everybody's forgotten about Spider-Man's identity, thank God. But that also includes his friends, and Peter has become a bit of a loner. Not much as a choice, but because he wants to protect the people he cares about. So many have died, so many have been put in danger, and yeah, that makes sense. And he's been operating alone in the city since then, fighting villains, fighting people, saving people, yada yada. Spider-Man. And a new threat is coming to town, which is going to force him to act in certain ways. The main thing about this film, honestly, it feels less like the MCU Spider-Man and just feels like Spider-Man. It feels like it's the movie adaptation of Insomniac's Spider-Man specifically. It's not just an impression, it's been confirmed that the game was an inspiration for the movie. You can see it within the choreographies, you can see it in the story, you can see it in a lot of things. Because the story follows a very conventional superhero structure. It's not necessarily inventing anything new, but that's fine. It works. It's been working for a while, and I much prefer to have that. Because for me, the bar with Spider-Man was already so low. Yeah, just make something simple and stick to it. And yeah, it works. It was very pleasant. You can tell the director actually wanted to film Spider-Man. He wanted to film him swinging in New York, wanted to film the streets of New York. You have this feel as soon as the movie starts that yes, this is about Spider-Man, this is about New York, which the other films completely failed at doing, since aside for the last one, which really didn't care about New York so much. We're making Spider-Man move away from New York. That's not a problem in itself, but Spider-Man is such a character made to work in New York. His whole thing is swinging like in a jungle, but the jungle just turns out to be buildings and concrete. From the get-go, made me feel, okay, I'm actually watching a Spider-Man film. I'm something that has some interest to watch, and not just because, God, man, the previous films, it felt so off from what I like about Spider-Man. If you've played the PS4 game, you'll see it's super blatant, but it works. There's a reason the game is so popular other than the gameplay, which is absolutely amazing. But we're not here to talk about that. we're here to talk about the film. Peter acts so much like Spider-Man. I mean, he did before a bit, but it is much more blatant in this one. You know, the little jokes, the interaction with the police. You look at it and you're like, yeah, this is Spider-Man. And being in New York actually has some importance. I do want to talk about the side characters though, because I'm not entirely sure how to feel about some of them. First, the obvious Ned and MJ. Of course, Ned and MJ make their return. This is something I hoped would not happen, but I also knew that I was very delusional and I was scared. I'll be honest, I was scared. I did not want to see them, and the first times we do see them, which is at the beginning of the film, as Peter reflects on his past, which you kind of need. It's like exposition for those who haven't seen the previous films, I guess. I just couldn't wait to not see them anymore. I was very excited about the idea of, hey, they're gonna leave, they're not gonna come back, but they do come back. And what I feared was a situation where we just completely invalidate the previous film, when what I wanted was for it to have deep consequences for the rest of Peter's life in a sort of Gwen's death event. We get an in-between. It works. Narratively, it works. Ned isn't a part of the story at all. Their interactions remain very light, aside for a scene or two. They clearly serve Peter's character development, which makes them useful and interesting, instead of, they need to bring Ned back, so they're bringing Ned back. No. They have interactions, and those interactions go along with Peter's character arc. Aside from maybe one scene at the end, but it's fine, I liked it. It doesn't make you feel like, oh, so the previous movie didn't matter. Quite the opposite, it did matter. It had consequences. Peter's having trouble with those consequences, and he's having to deal with it, because it's a movie that talks a lot about loneliness, and Peter's loneliness reflects on the antagonist's loneliness. So actually him having to try so hard to reconnect with Ned creates a logical reasoning with the antagonist, and the way the scenes are spread out throughout the movie also works the narratives with the antagonist. So although I didn't want this to happen, they made it in a way that made me accept it, and I'm pretty stubborn, so that's pretty cool. As for MJ, she's a little different. Peter reconnecting with Ned, I wouldn't necessarily mind, considering he's like his childhood best friend. MJ, I really didn't want. Honestly, every interaction she has with Peter serves not just Peter's character, but also the story as a whole. All of her scenes feel like they have a very strong purpose, and there actually aren't that many scenes with her. And honestly, I liked it. I liked her, even though it's a character I don't like. I will quickly mention, they're in the trailer, so it's fine. I will quickly mention Frank Castle, the Punisher, and Bruce Banner, the Hulk. I feared that their appearance would just be, marketing, come watch my film, those guys are in it, and a little bit, but also no, Frank takes an active part in the film. At first, he feels like a silly little cameo, but then he takes an active part in the story. Also, he's quite important for Peter's character development and another character development. He's clearly a side character, he's clearly supporting, he doesn't get developed. He actually serves a purpose other than, hey guys, I'm here, I'm Frank Castle, so come watch the film. No, he actually does come back throughout the film and does some stuff. As for Bruce Banner, well, his role is minimal, but the few scenes he's in, most of which are in the trailer, honestly, yeah, they serve the story. So having him is fine. It also would make sense that it's him. Unlike Frank, he really just is here to be here. And it's not super useful. Now I'm going to move into the spoiler area. What I really want to talk about, which is the theme of this whole video and ramble, is the connectivity within the MCU and how I just do not care about the MCU anymore. Don't care about their films, don't care about their projects. This movie made me care again a little, but just a little, because there is still a huge problem with connectivity. The connectivity is bad. To speak about Frank's character again, I wouldn't say he's the opposite to what he is in Daredevil and One Last Kill, for those who've seen that. I do recommend One Last Kill, by the way. It's 40-50 minutes long. It's just action scenes. There's some psychological story. It feels like it's a video game adapted to a film. It's pretty nice. It's very video gamey as well, just like A Brand New Day. But moving on to spoilers. One of my problems with the connectivity, notably, is how you begin the film and you feel like you've missed out on so much. I did say it was clearly inspired by Insomniac's Spider-Man. In Insomniac's Spider-Man, you play with a Spider-Man that's already somewhat established. Obviously, this dude has had 3 films, so he is established. But what I mean is, Insomniac makes you feel like the universe has had a life without you. In the game, you discover that life through events and little items, and And here, the opening montage does the same thing. It shows was very brief interactions of Spider-Man with some villains. Spider-Man has been active, having stories. I am just a bit sad because we're not seeing those stories. I mean, let's be honest here. Spider-Man should not have movies. You should have a show where you see many different characters, stories, blah, blah, blah. It would work, but I guess it would be expensive to make. I don't know. Either way, the movie starts off by making me feel like I've missed out on stuff. And it works with a lot of other things. Peter and Frank know each other. It's clear that they know each other. There's a whole thing about it's an island. Things we've never seen, right? And I was a bit upset about not seeing Frank and Peter meet. Frank does activate uncharacteristic. I mean, he's so serious all the time and extreme all the time in the show. Here he's a little more laid back. He does make some jokes. He does have some little interactions. I think it's fine. My headcanon, as someone who doesn't read Punisher comics, everything we've seen Daredevil and the Punisher, Frank is someone who despises when the heroes have this not killing rule, especially when they have trauma that makes him go, oh, you're like me, you should give in to the impulses. He does that with Matt in Born Again, but I will talk about Born Again later if you don't want to be spoiled. But the difference is, I think he doesn't respect Matt or see Matt in the same way because Matt is, I don't know if he's his age, but he's a grown adult, is the point, who's had time to make his decisions, to make his mistakes. And therefore, he doesn't feel the need to respect him because he could be just like all the criminals he's trying to kill, right? So he's much more brutal to Daredevil. He doesn't really care about getting his life saved, which is why it was a tad weird that he did care about Peter saving his life. I think the main difference is that he understands that Peter is a kid. I think it's pretty obvious to him that Peter is a kid. That's what makes him like him or be nice to him to a certain manner, because the way his character seems to work is that when the character is young, when a character is rather young, when someone is young, he's going to be more protective with them. That's literally what happens in Punisher Season 2. I can accept it under that prism. What's really interesting though is when he interacts with MJ, and yeah, their interactions make sense. MJ is like, oh, I like him. He's like, okay, fine, I'll protect her. And Frank is pretty consistent with that version of the character throughout the film. I guess the only part where it's not as consistent is the end where he puts on Spider-Man's mask. But you know what? I like to think that it is him reconnecting with how he talks with younger people and his, dad side. So I'll give it a pass. It's pretty crazy that Peter hasn't arrested that man, but that's pretty whatever. But talking about MJ, she is really useful and interesting. Of course, she has a boyfriend now. But what I really liked about her is her whole bluntness about how she doesn't know Peter. I mean, I said that sentence coming, but yeah, she doesn't know Peter. That's true. She doesn't feel anything for him. The spell worked. She has a life now. And from the way they interact, it feels pretty much like, yeah, you gotta move on. It's not happening again. We're not gonna get together again. I like that a lot. This actually creates some motivation for Peter to move on. That it just makes sense. Yeah, it makes a ton of sense. Why would she just suddenly fall back in love with him? And it works even more with the previous scene when Peter goes to save her the first time, because, he's making mistakes, right? He's been paranoid, he's blah, blah, blah. He goes to save her and they go on a rooftop. They have a discussion and she's like, hey, I remember you. I still love you. And they kiss. When that happened, I was so angry because I thought, there we go. That film understood nothing. That film is dumb. That film is stupid. I hate this. I hate everything about this. And as they kiss, there's a guy in the audience. Again, this was screened outside. There's more of a we're together feeling, so it's fine. Who started screaming, let's go, and encourage people to clap, and that was pretty cute. I mean, I was hating it on that moment, but I was pretty cute retrospectively. And they all clap and shit, and I'm like, no, she has a boyfriend. She's cheating. Oh, I remember you now. I don't care about the past that the life that I've built. And I was just like, I hate this. I hate you and I hate this. But then it's revealed almost immediately that this is actually Jean inside her head messing with Spider-Man. I love it because that's not just the character playing on Spider-Man's expectations. It is the writer playing on my expectations. I was about to get upset, but they got me. They got me good. I have to defeat, and that was beautiful. It's not just a one-off, the villain got you. No, that comes back. They talk about it. I love that Peter tells MJ about it. Clearly she doesn't care. It's fine. He tells MJ about it in oh, I broke your consent. You didn't know. And they don't talk about consent directly, but that's clearly the meaning here. I broke your content, I'm sorry, which is a very important message for kids and which is great for their character development. And I love it. It leads to discussions that are interesting about moving on, and she's still being friendly because she's a nice person. I mean, that's Spider-Man, and she's a nice person overall, and she understands because she read the letter. And what I liked about also her reading the letter is that it doesn't create this cliche characters get upset for characters to be friendly again later on. There's an argument of sort, but it's very calm. It's more of a discussion. She comes to him immediately. She's unhappy that she didn't know because that's part of her life, and it explains a lot of inconsistencies in her life. And she doesn't yell at him. There's no like huge argument. There's a calm and clear discussion about feelings, personal investment, about mistakes, and that is much more interesting than having I'm upset at you, I'm gonna leave now, I'm gonna go into danger, and then you're gonna save me, and then we're gonna be fine and never talk about it again. No. And it also leads into her inviting him to see Ned because they understand each other. That's the beautiful part. I never cared about their relationship. I thought it was forced, considering that Peter in the first film is trying to get after one girl, and suddenly in the second film he has a crush on MJ. But this made it feel like they did have a relationship because they were talking in such an understanding of each other manner. This scene also serves the story overall. It is through talking with MJ that he learns that the plot twist, the government is actually the evil and the evil is actually just misunderstood. I mean, I told you it's a pretty conventional structure. The fact that it's through this calm discussion with MJ that he gets to learn that is great. He gets to connect with Ned. There's like rewards to the character actually being emotionally mature. We're probably gonna see MJ again, but I don't think that dynamic is going to be the same, and I am thankful for that. So yeah, that's Ned and MJ, and Ned is about the same. He's just not very important in the movie, he's not important in the story. I also said earlier that I wasn't happy about Spider-Man knowing Frank before the movie. There's also the Spider-Man knows what's her name, Yelena. It makes sense that Spider-Man, again, just the same way Spider-Man and Frank know each other, Spider-Man and the Avengers know each other, but it also kind of comes out of nowhere that they clearly know each other. Like, there's so much that Peter has done. It feels like Peter has done more in between Far From Home and Brand New Day than he's done before Far From Home. But that's just detail. Like, it's the world building that feels like this Spider-Man has evolved in a different MCU, in a different universe than the rest of the MCU, which is good for the film and bad for the overall MCU connectivity that I have problems with. Connection with Born Again. In slight Born Again spoiler, essentially vigilantes are outlawed, fascism is installed in New York City. That seems to have had absolutely no consequences into Brand New Day whatsoever. There's no mention of it at all. Like, we should be in a New York that is charged politically because it just happened. I feel like we're in a completely different New York. The true comic book experience. The stories don't link up with each other. Brand New Day should have been at least a little bit affected by Born Again, especially because it wouldn't have been that hard. The worst part out of this, okay, Matt is in prison. He cannot help Spider-Man for his story. Frank is back despite the fact that he's completely ignored the Born Again Season 2 events, but he did in the Season 1. Sure, whatever, let's say I accept that. The worst part about this, it would not have been difficult to link the stories together with the villain, Jean Grey, coming in to do bad stuff. The whole Spider-Man saving the city, especially since he's having trouble with his powers and whatnot, was absolutely a grounds for Spider-Man trying to rebuild the reputations of vigilante using what Daredevil has already done. It should have at least been mentioned. I understand that sometimes you cannot link two stories that they're so extremely apart, they're so extremely different, and I understand that it is difficult to put together storylines that are actively working against being put together. But here it's not the case. They work together so well that I sincerely do not understand why they haven't done it. It is not so difficult. It is not so difficult to make a shared universe. They used to at the beginning of the MCU. Everything was linked all the time and it just worked just through one character or one interaction or the world. I never felt like the story was disconnected, but here I really do all the time. That's why it's nice to have Frank interact with Spider. It creates those little connectivities. It's been revealed recently that Tom Holland and others have been asking for edit changes after test screenings, and some things have changed. Notably, Claire Temple was supposed to be in the movie and now she's not. I don't know why she's not. What was the point of cutting her out? Like, was she gonna be fan service? Yes, absolutely. But it's literally just fan service. Like, it's a cameo. Cameos in themselves, I don't mind, as long as it's just a cameo. Her appearing at the end, for example, talking to Frank, and helping Spider-Man not having his identity revealed while also getting healed would make sense, because that's a logical cameo where, one, it is logical with all of the characters involved and the way they would act, and two, it is a possible setup for later to have Spidey and Luke Cage interact and all of the Defenders interact. Because I'll be honest, I want to see Spidey in treat level shows with the Daredevil and Jessica Jones and everybody else more than I want to see him with the Avengers. Like, that's the cool thing with him, is that you can put him in both places. Considering she got cut out, my question is, what else got cut out? Supposedly it's stuff that the fans wanted, but that wasn't necessarily good for the sake of the movie. I respect that decision very much, and I will believe that it is true. But you can still make a good film and have like cool shit happen. And to finish, I will talk about the villain. I really like the villain. She is simple. Like, I'm not going to pretend she is the villain of the year, especially because I know she's not supposed to be a villain. She's supposed to be a more important character. I don't know anything about the X-Men. I've seen the films, it was a while ago. I understand that Jean Grey is supposed to be a super important character in the comics, and that she in the MCU will be the basis for the X-Men and the next phases. Considering all of that, the way she is introduced is so simple that yes, it's good. She is the antagonist of the film, and at the end of the film, she is no longer hit. She's not that like super huge, look at the next big thing. Keep it simple, you make it work in the movie, and you set up for later. I'm very happy with this, especially because she has a good story. I was born with powers, it's not explained, probably going to be for later, if it's ever explained, because I mean the whole point of the mutants, that's just how they're born. Her sister was abducted by the government, she looks for her, like she's just some lost girl. She's grown up in an extremely lonely environment, only ever been her and her sister until she got abducted and, as she finds out later, killed. Her story of loneliness reflects Peter's story of loneliness, and there's a thing that I particularly like. I hated the Green Goblin being in Far From Home that way, not being an original Goblin, not being... I didn't like it. I hated it so much. It was still well made, but I hated it as a concept. This film makes it retroactively work because the Green Goblin isn't directly mentioned. Peter's aunt dying is mentioned, but you know, the way she dies isn't directly mentioned. It's always underneath what's being said. Like, Peter mentions his trauma a bit. He mentions losing people, but he doesn't make it his personality. It is his personality. He doesn't make it his personality. That is wildly different. He talks about it when it's relevant to talk about it, and it has an impact in the story. Jean is like, I'm so alone and traumatized, and he's like, yeah, I'm also alone and traumatized, and you have proof that I am not lying because you're literally in my head, although for some reason you can't get in my head, probably because of the spell. I'm inviting you in my head. I'm trusting you, and I am inviting you in my head. And here you can witness what happened. We don't need to tell the people watching the film. It is just you and I, and you understand my trauma, and I understand your trauma, and I have seen death, and I have also wanted to get revenge, and that it was a mistake, and that I've learned from it. Now I live in loneliness, and I've accepted that loneliness, but that loneliness is also hurting me, and I need to learn how to move on right now. So all of this accumulates into a lesson for Jean. Peter showing his own trauma to someone who's making the mistakes he almost made, and he's like, oh, you're not alone, you have me now, which yeah, she does. She leaves the city at the end, probably to establish what's gonna happen next, and I wish she hadn't. I wish she had stayed with Peter, but that works another way. Like, it's a story that works. I'm happy with the way it ends. Everyone's learned something and wishes to move on, and there's no point talking about everything she does in the film, because the really important part is to understand her trauma, the reason she's doing what she's doing, and the final scenes. And that made me want to see more of Jean Grey. I'm very interested in the character. I'm very interested in what's going to happen next. I really feel like she should be a love interest for Peter now. Let me explain. She should be either one or two things. Either a love interest that will not turn out to be a good relationship and they will remain very, very close friends, or just like a very close friend for the rest of the MCU, because they have bonded in such a manner. Peter sincerely just saved her. Like, he has that was my Spider-Man. Saving people from themselves even. I feel like a story where Peter and Jean go out, and I mean the relationship in itself doesn't go so bad, like it goes well, but rather, you know, it's a relationship that is based off of trauma, and oh, we're both lonely and both traumatized, but later you realize that the trauma is limiting you, because you need to move on from the trauma, you need to learn from your traumas, and you need to move on, and you need to change as a person, and you need to learn. I feel like that's gonna make them realize that they shouldn't be together. That would be very interesting, a very nice self-contained story to tell. And honestly Granted, this film has definitely a much better villain. If I had to rank the villains, it would be her, it would be Brand New Day, then Homecoming, Far From Home, and No Way Home. That was Spider-Man Brand New Day. I do recommend it. I mean, it is not the best movie in the world, but it's a good watch. It's got really good choreographies. It's a sincerely overall good film, and I mean, it's not bad. The bar for me was so low with what had been happening previously in the MCU, especially with movies, the Spider-Man ones. Like, as I've been saying, I hated those. I at least really heavily disliked them. I did not like Spider-Man until now. I did not like his suit. I did not like his characterization. I did not like the characters around him. Now, yeah, it's bringing in a little bit of more of faith back into the MCU. I'm not gonna say we are so back with the MCU because there's still a lot to do. There's still a lot of problems. They have messed up bad with their plans. They have messed up bad with Kang. They have messed up bad. They have been messing up bad. And I also didn't care about Doom being RDJ. Come back to the MCU. I know Kang isn't happening, but I wanted Kang to happen. I love time travel stories. Oh yeah, Brand New Day, good cinematography, good characters, a story that's solid, much better than the previous films, unless you're a person who is very easily gotten by nostalgia stuff, because the first three were not good. It is not like the movie that's gonna revolutionize cinema. I mean, you're watching the MCU, brother. Like, when they do try to make something interesting like Eternals, people are like, this sucks, so... The best part of the MCU is Daredevil anyways. A few things. The Hulk fight was pretty cool, although it works within the structure of the film, since Jean can essentially go anywhere. We don't know what happens to Banner afterwards, or we have an idea, but it's kind of sent as a, hey, we don't care. The situation stays unclear, and like, okay. And there's also this scene with the helicopter. Peter understands that she has a 10-meter range and can't go more than that, but she escapes and gets to MJ before Peter does. It's never explained how. Overall, like, the film feels like it's lacking scenes. You can tell it's been cut. You can tell that there's holes. It feels like there's holes. It's trying to tell maybe a little too much. Now let's move on from Spider-Man to talk about the news related to Doomsday. The thing about Doomsday, the only reason I know about those news is because they had a lot of announcements last week. What is the future of the MCU going to look like? I haven't been following up on much. I've been following from afar, but I did miss some shows. I had missed Born Again. So when they did their recent reveals about the cast of Doomsday, they've also revealed that they are making a Ghost Rider film. Brother, I'm all for it, but I have been waiting for that Blade film since forever. So great, we're getting all these characters together. They've actually not been developing much of a story. Like, what do they have in common? I know I can answer those questions very easily, and I think that's been a pretty common criticism about the MCU. It's just that they haven't managed to make us care about everything that's been going on as well as they had done previously. Now, the obvious reason for that again is Kang. That has changed, not to say ruined, everything, because they were setting us up for that. They got a new plan. I understand, sometimes things don't work out. There's unexpected stuff happening. You cannot control everything, and you have to adapt. But when they announced that, Thanos was also not present during the first phases of the MCU, so you guys shouldn't care that Doom hasn't been present now or anything, is simply a blatant lie. And I already distrust the Marvel producers, but if they are going to just keep on lying to us, I'm just gonna feel disrespected. Maybe the character in himself can only be shut down to like 3 short appearances or something, but Thanos is more than that. It wasn't just Thanos, it was the Infinity Stones that have been set up throughout many films. Like, it's literally Infinity War and Endgame work because they bring back items, people, setups, and they truly feel like a consequence of the previous storytelling. They feel like part of the storytelling. Meanwhile, Doomsday, as of right now, in no way feels part of the overall storytelling. People were so excited trying to put together the Infinity Stones, their locations, their use, etc., as the movies were going on, because these are things, though you're not directly putting it together
in like having films that say, oh, these and these are linked, and these and these are linked. It's indirectly linked. Hell, it's not even indirect, it's pretty directly linked. It worked because it made the universe feel coherent and connected while also minimizing the need to actually connect said universe. Obviously, they tried to set up new characters for Kang, and that is not happening, but there still is a missing component because it's not just about the villains, it's about the themes, items, it's about so much more. Doom is factually a panic button, and I think we can all agree on that. However, they did announce, and I think that's very good, I'm very happy about that. I don't know if they're gonna do it well. They did announce they are going to re-release Endgame, although it's probably for some sort of money reason or whatever, with extra scenes to explain certain things. I'm not entirely sure, and I am a bit curious to see what the extra scenes are gonna be, because they said that it was to make a link between the events of Endgame and the events of Doomsday. Now at this point, it's gonna happen, it's how it is. I'm unhappy, we're all unhappy about the fact that it is pretty much disconnected from the rest of the MCU, that the movies didn't set Doomsday up. I am scared that it is going to be a trap, that it's really just going to be Endgame, and then, oh, but technically there's one scene that links Steve Rogers going back to the past with the time travel that we're going to see in Doomsday, which, and if that's it, that sucks. But yeah, Doomsday is definitely like a sequel to Endgame more than anything, and maybe to Fantastic Four. What I've noticed also from the cast is some missing people. For example, I haven't seen, I forgot her name, like, where is she? Because in our universe right now, she has effectively teleported to the universe of the X-Men. We don't know if it's the same universe as Deadpool, so she's not here, but it's a movie that is very explicitly going to be about the multiverse and the X-Men, like specifically those guys. That's just a bit weird. Like, I feel like if anything, she should be the main character. Yeah, also about Deadpool. Deadpool creates huge continuity problems. They live in the world where Logan happens. Deadpool knows Logan happens, or will happen. Therefore, he knows Charles is about to murder a bunch of people. And there's two Wolverines living in the universe, including one that is meant to die at the same time. And that's fine. That's not one of my problems with multiversal stuff. The reason multiversal stuff was invented, correct me if I'm wrong, it was in the Silver Age of DC Comics. I mean, they didn't invent the concept of the multiverse, but with the Flash of Two Worlds, where, you know, Jay Garrick and Barry Allen meet, and that was just a concept created to say, let's make fun, cool crossovers. So is it meant for art, or is it meant for sales? Maybe in between. Later, what really modernized, so to speak, the concept was really 1983. Crisis on Infinite Earth, as we all know, and the purpose of that was to reunite worlds together so they could soft reboot the franchise, which is absolutely a necessity. It comes to a point where you have years and years and years of story building up where people don't care about one another's canons, and it creates problems when you try to do canons. Pretty useful and necessary, and it's happened several times, again, when they needed to merge timelines, when they needed to merge things. It was editorial. It wasn't necessarily for money. I mean, obviously, if it's editorial, it's for money, but I mean, it wasn't about hype, it wasn't about... The reason I say that, and I use the DC example solely because I read DC comics, I have read very few Marvel comics. I think it's important to go back to the roots of what the multiverse is. Yes, it can create cool stuff, but as I think a lot of us have been noticing, it can also reduce the narrative impact of a lot of stories. We have two Wolverines living in one universe. Suddenly, the emotional appeal of one character's death is not as big a deal. It's important to be careful when you write multiverse stuff, and I think need to still be limited. Marvel right now is trying to put all of their IPs together, the X-Men universe, all of that stuff. They're trying to merge it together, and that is literally the exact same logic as in the 80s and 90s so far. So that is why I'm not so upset, because I can understand that from a production perspective and the need to organize everything into one coherent universe, they felt the need to do it like that, and that I can respect it, because as I've said earlier, it is not so hard to make a coherent shared universe. And superhero fighting, I do not think is a real thing. I think it's a bad movie fatigue, because the MCU has always been criticized for having mid to bad films as early as Phase 2, no matter how people are telling us now about how, oh, I miss the days of the Winter Soldier, it was so good. Man, I was there, people hated that. Unless I've crossed over another universe. I mean, hated is a bit of a bad word, but we've been so accustomed to, I don't want to say slub, but to mid films, that criticism has become difficult. On one side, you have people who will watch anything and be be happy. Funnily enough, I'm kind of one of those people. I can literally enjoy any film. I will criticize it, but I can enjoy it. Will get irritated when you tell them it's not good. I understand, but it's okay. And on another hand, you have so many different types of people who are going to watch your movie, and your goal as a huge studio is to get all of these people to enjoy the film. Therefore, if you make a film that is mid enough for everyone to think it's mid, nobody will think it's bad, which is not how things should go. It is how it goes in the capitalist world, where you try to reach as many people, make as much money, etc. But art is meant to follow. Well, no, art is not meant to be anything. You do whatever you want. Narrations, when they follow genres and limitations for a group of people who identify to that genre / those limitations. Not better in an objective sense of better art, but better in an organization sense. When you make art, you should make what you like and what is yourself. By the way, I do take reading recommendations. I don't read a lot of comics because I don't have much time, but I would love to. Anyways, people who like watching the Punisher TV show might not be the same people who like watching the Spiderman films, and vice versa. So that's why it's okay for Punisher and for Spider-Man to have completely different tones and completely different characterizations and vibes. For example, Spider-Man should lean even more into that Spider-Man genre that it's already embodying. But when they make a movie like Avengers, how do they do that? The first Avenger was good because it had a director with a specific ideas. Most of the films were also in a similar vibe, similar genres. The early 2000s and 2010s still had superhero as a genre, and I'm pretty sure we still say superhero as a genre today, but I think that it is very wrong to do that. It is a big mistake, because is it just because someone puts on a suit and beats up some guys that it's a superhero show? If yes, why is Jessica Jones a superhero show? And if not, why would Daredevil not be a superhero show? Like, it doesn't make any sense. It's like action genre. I mean, we all understand what it means now, but if you think about it, the concept of a film is that there's action in it. You're acting. The superhero genre really is a term from the early 2000s, and it stuck with that early 2000s meaning while the genre was in actuality evolving. My point with this is that what is Endgame's genre? If the first Avenger had this superhero genre to itself, we can assume rather safely that every Avenger film had their own genre. Now, the individual film is something else. I do believe that Doctor Strange is its own thing. I mean, most movies will have two genres, right? So you can say superhero plus. What about other films like Thor? Well, Thor 1, Thor 2? Yeah, definitely. But Thor 3 and Thor 4, you can tell that they have their own... They have a director who has a vision and who is trying to establish that vision. Likewise, James Gunn has Guardians of the Galaxy, which in itself feels like a Gunn film. People have been talking about that. Superman is a James Gunn film. So that's what directing is. Directing, being a good director means you'll have your own genre. So can we call Guardians of the Galaxy a superhero film? Do we call it a James Gunn film first? Same for Spider-Man. I would say the first three Spider-Man were definitely a superhero film. Brand New Day? I don't know. I mean, it is, obviously, but Avengers is probably just going to be a superhero film. If the genre in itself is already limited by its own existence, then how can it really make us feel like it is that good, other than the fact that it is the Avengers film and all people are together and all big things are happening? I mean, sure, it's great to have big things happening, but is it really about the big things happening, or is it about the direction? Is it about the screenplay? Is it about the acting? The acting, which is good anyways. Avengers 1 was so good, and I fear that this is what Endgame is going to do. It's going to be a sequence of events with a sequence of characters that doesn't try to think beyond the fact, that doesn't try to be a particularly interesting film other than, have CGI and people, and that would be too bad. But I am willing to accept it because the purpose of Secret War is to reboot the universe in order to become a new entry point. That's sad, but a sad necessity, and I would have done the same. It just really depends on how they're gonna do it. What they really need to do is have the balls to reset everything back to zero. But they clearly won't do that because they are setting up films. Or are they going to go down the path, which isn't a bad path, of the DCU and say we are keeping some things and we'll tell you what, and we're not keeping all the things? Or is it going to be we're changing almost nothing, we're just resurrecting some character and changing some actors? Now, factually, we need to change actors. They're getting old, and therefore I think they need young actors in their 20s for all the characters, for most of the characters, even the old ones. And we need more of the new gen. We need more young. I wouldn't mind a full reset. Like, it kind of depends how they do it. They have failed so hard at establishing a coherent continuity. It's a working continuity, but as I've been saying, and I will keep saying it, it is not that hard to make it work. Look at Daredevil, for instance, the first of the Netflix shows. Daredevil starts by establishing that most of the events happening in New York are a direct consequence to the Battle of New York, and it works amazingly. And I like to imagine the reason that New York is in the state that it is in is because after that battle, that's why everything goes down here for some reason. My point is, it is very doable to connect your universe without too much effort, and yet they still don't. I've been watching the MCU just fail at doing that again and again and again. You can both have original movies that do their own thing and have an interconnected universe. It absolutely works, but they're managing to fail at doing both. That is the crazy part. So I don't know. I hope Doomsday and Secret Wars don't ruin what this new Spider-Man film tried to create. The one detail I'm notably worried about is that we have no news of the Venom. It was set up. There's no payoff yet. From what I understand, the suit is deeply linked to the battle world in the comics. I feel like they could tell a very interesting story, especially with Peter's whole power mutation thing. Oh yeah, I also forgot to mention that earlier. It's more of a thing in order to serve the discourse of be yourself with your powers versus don't be yourself. But I think they can still use that storyline to talk about if they intend on using the Venom suit, which I hope they do, because I mean it's there, you might as well. I am very fearful towards what Marvel is trying to accomplish with what they have left, because even if they do manage to get one character right, two character right, and people seem to be pretty upset about Doom already. I don't really care personally, but that's pretty alarming. I'm finally starting to care again a little, and also from watching Born Again, because even if they do manage to do these self-contained stories properly, which doing self-contained production is the basis of any studio, that in itself isn't the problem. Marvel has the intention to reset everything. We don't entirely know the extent of said reset, and are they really managing to connect their history properly? I just feel like a lot is getting skipped. But with Doomsday being the next film on the MCU list, we should get an answer very soon. And hopefully the things I worry about don't come to fruition, and the next Avengers really make me want to come back to the MCU. Thank you everyone for watching. Please do consider liking and subscribing if you enjoyed the format. I think I'll be doing more of these just rambles. If you do want me to expand my thoughts on certain subjects, don't hesitate to ask, and I might try to make a deeper dive into certain themes instead of just saying what I'm thinking on the spur of the moment. Either way, thank you very much and see you around.